Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this month's edition of the MSP-Ignite Resource Network webinar. I'm always excited to bring these out to our members and invited guests. There's always some great content. I'm especially excited today that everyone speaking to you today comes from New York. Now, as a New Yorker, that excites me. It may not excite you as much, but two of us are from downstate close to New York City, one a couple hours away, but all coming to you from the East Coast and from New York. Today's topic is how to get stickier with your clients during high inflation or recessionary times. Interestingly enough, I believe the sponsor and the content provider today touch on that topic in different ways. And I think it's equally important whether we're in inflationary times or not. Couple of ground rules for you. We will be recording this session, so don't worry about that. You will be getting an email afterwards with a link to our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to see it there, record, pull it down, share it with other people, whatever you like to do. We will have time for Q&A at the end of the entire session. So for both presenters, they will be together at the end for Q&A. Please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Do not use the chat. It just makes it a lot easier for us to follow when you do that. So use that, and we'll be happy to try and get to every question you guys have. Even if we have to stay a little longer, we'll try and get to those for you. I'm kind of excited today that we've got Jake Carroll of OSR, or Osprey Strategic Research, with us today. Jake and I have known each other for, well, I think as long as he's been in this channel, probably. He's one of the first people I met back in the early days of working with Autotask. He's got 25 years of sales experience. He's VP of sales for OSR and brings just a world of experience in this industry, in the channel, working with MSPs and talking about how to increase sales in general or increase your stickiness in this case. So we're excited to have Jake here to present. Of course, webinars like this don't take place for free. It requires sponsors. We bring sponsors in to give you a little bit of a taste of what they do and how they can help you, but also to help pay for these things. Today, we're really lucky to have TimeZest with us. It's fortunate that they fit into this section because I believe stickiness is not only about account management and sales tactics, it's about your service delivery. And TimeZest does a fantastic job of helping you schedule all the work you do with your clients. Christian and I have become friends. We're practically neighbors. He's the community manager of TimeZest. He's going to be presenting first for us today. So, Christian, if you're ready, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. Just want to kick off and thank the entire MSP-Ignite community, both those present and those that might be checking in on the recorded video. Jumped at the opportunity, not only to work with Steve and his team, in the MSP-Ignite community, but like Steve touched on, I think that or know that we fit in very well with the topic of today's discussion. Obviously, the MSP industry, much like any market per se, is up against it. So little, critical efficiencies that you could dial in, like automated scheduling with workflow automation back into your PSA ticketing system, would, like I said, close gaps in, these uncharted times we find ourselves in. So, a little bit of a loaded question. In the 12 years that I've been doing this, since 2010, I've yet to come across an MSP that had straight line scheduling and was 100% across the board content with how they schedule. We know it wastes time in your day. We have some statistics on the bottom, not quantified, but just some aggregate intel and data points that we've seen at a very high level, nothing too scientific, but at a very, minimal baseline, what we're typically seeing in terms of time waste, time entries against the ticket, 2.5 days of 15 quarter hour time entries to just get that connection with your client that takes, the problem at hand takes you 3 minutes to fix. The one thing I'd want to impress upon you today as we get rolling is I'd assume everybody on the call, just given that, your MSP-Ignite members, you probably have some insight and intel in what percentage of your tickets perpetually are stuck in that, dreaded waiting on client status or some similar, nomenclature or status. We pop a hole right in that. So, just want to Little housekeeping again. Steve kind of hit the highlights here. I'm the community manager with TimesZest, and there would be the direct line information to get in touch with me once we wrap up here. So at a high level, TimesZest delivers scheduling automation with workflows into your PSA ticketing system. Our brain trust in our founders 3 to 4 years back, pretty much acknowledged what I think everybody knows to a certain extent. The world has moved to scheduling automation links. Not going to, mention the market leaders, but there's one very prominent scheduling automation software vendor that sells into every vertical market, isn't focused on the MSP channel, but they've done a great job of conceptually selling all professionals on the concept of, we need to meet, here's my link, review it, marry it to your availability, we'll confirm it, get it in our calendars and our meet. We just saw a golden opportunity to take what's become the standard from a scheduling perspective and take it past the calendar, make it battle ready, battle tested for the MSP, taking it past the calendar and back into a few critical points that you would be updating manually within the ticket. We'll all pull in as part of that round trip automation and workflow. So why are scheduling automation and workflow automation important? 2 core reasons. Reason number 1, as I touched on a moment ago, scheduling links are the standard. I can't remember the last time I personally, outside of the MSP world and MSP considerations, scheduled anything, professional services wise that didn't, kick off with me getting a link. And like I said, reviewing the availability, marrying it to mine, selecting my preferred date and time, getting it back to the entity that I'm scheduling with, and then moving forward. I hate to use the word generic, but like e-signature or e-commerce shopping cart functionality, the link is the link at this point. We're just the market leading MSP channel vendor who, like I said, decided to take it past the calendar and into MSP workflows by way of the ticket and a few different areas within the PSA system itself. What we're seeing here, would be the client process. I've skipped over things considerably, just to give you a high level look and feel for what we're doing. But, I'd fall over if anybody on this call or anybody watching the recorded video, hasn't clicked on a calendar menu like this. Client gets the link. It's going to be for an appointment type that, you're sending to them based on the information you have. If it's service, you would do some triage and assessment. You would select an applicable service appointment type within the ticket, within AutoTask. Whatever the consideration is from, a scheduling perspective, you send the link, the client clicks on it, and they would have an experience very akin to what we're seeing here. I just will point out, I can't tell you how many times people engage TimesZest, your peers in the MSP channel, and some of the fastest sales cycles I've seen in 12 plus years in the space, pretty much, because their POC at one of their larger clients said, enough's enough. We've been scheduling with our end users, utilizing that market leader that I've, kind of danced around earlier. We can't pick up the phone, the email support help it works, we haven't let you go yet, but you do respond to it, but we want to schedule with you how our end users are scheduling with us. So like I said, it's a scheduling link world and business climate we find ourselves in. And once more, reason number 1 why scheduling automation and workflow automation is important. Reason number 2, I dare to venture to say that eliminating scheduling ping pong in any market climate, makes clients stickier. The whole back and forth scheduling ping pong, client raises their hand, tickets created, it gets assigned to a tech, the tech calls that client, the client's in an internal meeting, they get a voicemail, they wrap up that meeting, they call the tech back, that tech's on an on-site visit. Regardless of inflation or recession considerations, solving for that, it definitely is going to move the needle. It's going to make you and your teams that much more efficient, and it's just going to provide a superior, client engagement process back to you and your MSP. As we know, labor costs have gone through the roof. That's resulting in margin compression. Each and every efficiency that you could solve for, like eliminating the 4, 6, 8 hours per tech per month that they're currently dedicating, unfortunately, to scheduling connections with your client, will help you, kind of maneuver through this market climate and some of the pressure that you're seeing, both in your labor costs. We all know it's been overclubbed and it's almost redundant to talk about at this point, but bringing new talent in, you may have had to bump your existing staff just to retain them. So I could tell you, regardless of size and shape of your practice, everybody's up against it. I came into the MSP space in 2010. I've seen every process and every technology be re-evolved and reinvented 10 times over. The one thing that's relatively the same is how you schedule. So again, locking this down, the availability to get a ticket or get an inquiry, marry the resource internally that you want to work, work that issue at hand, marry it to the applicable point type, send the link and put the ball in the client's corner and move on to whatever's next in your day. It's going to give a considerable amount of time back. And again, with the margin compression considerations, every little efficiency certainly counts. This slide kind of speaks to that. Like I said, regardless of what we're up against here in 2022, things kind of appeared to maybe stabilize, but as of late, the last couple of weeks, not the fear, but more and more people are kind of speaking to the fact that those realities and circumstances are persisting a little bit longer. Like I said, the availability to schedule with your clients, like they're scheduling with their end users, they know exactly what to do. You're always going to have that one off client that no matter what technology you introduce to him or her, you're going to have to spell it out for them. But the vast majority of whom you're working with is clicked on a link. They're going to be very receptive and open to potentially scheduling their time with you for what they contract you for as quick and simple and straightforward as possible. So how can we help? I think I've spoken to, the elimination of scheduling ping pong. Not sure, what the industry standard is in terms of waiting on client status. If it's double digits, from my perspective, I think it's something that you should, attempt to fix and address, but we eliminate that back and forth. Some MSPs are pretty well baked on their existing, scheduling processes. That's because something as simple as time zest hasn't been, there for the taking, for implementation. Many people have, come up with scheduling processes that look like, federal government purchasing, charts. And that's because there is not a better process in place. We once more, took that concept and, really set out to eliminate that back and forth that makes you, less efficient. And from a client satisfaction perspective, certainly isn't working for them, where they have to wait and, kind of go back and forth by way of email, voicemail, and or phone call volleys. We have a seamless integration into the two market leading PSAs, Datto Autotask and then ConnectWise Manage. We are in pod, as I understand it. We were the first vendor to engage or, activate our solution from in-ticket. So, from a service delivery and, technical engineering perspective, that side of the house would full on have the availability, to schedule out of tickets. Once the scheduling goes down, statuses are updated. The meeting that's now been set, scheduled, and confirmed, goes into the meetings tab within the Autotask ticket or the ConnectWise Manage ticket. And then above and beyond that, we're going to itemize out and provide you an audit trail, each and every step of the way of all that scheduling activity specific to, that ticket and that connection that you needed to schedule with your client. And again, once we pop that hole and things decrease considerably from that waiting on client status, the correlated help desk, call and email volume is reduced as well. It's a very straightforward, self-explanatory process to the client. They're going to pull down the date and time that works for them. So it does mitigate and cut into that call volume of when's the tech going to follow up with me? I've been waiting, X amount of time. This would be the full list of our integration partners. One thing I want to touch upon is we do directly integrate to Office 365. So for anybody on the call or, anybody in the MSP-Ignite organizations who are like, that's great, but X percentage of, my headcount and staff doesn't go near tickets, does not go, near the PSA. They live exclusively out of their Outlook calendars. With our integration to Office 365, we'd be able to merge both sides of the house under time zest. We simultaneously look up availability in both calendars and then drop the appointment based on work role, either into the PSA or the Outlook calendar. And then based on those two platforms sync, they will be updated on that sync schedule. Teams, Zoom, Cloud Radio from a client self-servicing portal perspective. a whole host of options to sync time zest and our processes into, the platforms that you work with. And again, I think a lot of what I said has been specific and heavy to, service delivery and the help desk. I spoke to and touched upon the availability to schedule with our solution directly out of the ticket. Like I said, with the Office 365 integration, for executives, sales, account management, the side of the house that doesn't necessarily live within the PSA, with the Office 365 integration, you'd have the availability to bring them into the mix. Quarterly business reviews, account management. If you're leveraging your PSA campaigns and automating, the scheduling cadence to those QBRs, QHRs, you would have the availability to tuck our time zest shareable URLs into those email campaigns for QBR scheduling. We spoke to clients for service. Just keep in mind, we work with project tickets as well, all the same. We have the availability to team schedule. So you can take X number of resources and pool or pod them based on, any business consideration you would have for putting them together. We have 2 scheduling logics you can throw behind team scheduling, straight round robin, pretty self-explanatory. Or if you have utilization, considerations, we could do max availability. But a few different ways we could bring team scheduling into the mix. And then scheduling workflows, kind of akin to the PSA campaigns. If I were to email help at or support at, that auto generates or auto creates a ticket, kicks an email out to me. Hey, we've received your inquiry. We've created this ticket for you. If you wanted to get scheduling into the mix at that acknowledgement stage by way of that automated email, you can tuck and fold our schedulable URLs for that workflow and process as well. And I'll leave you here with this. 58% of probably well above 261,000 scheduled meetings at this point, we've automated for our MSP partners within an hour of them sending the time zest scheduling link. So just some food for thought on, how we'll move the needle and cut into that. With that, I'd like to go ahead and hand off to Jake. Thanks once more for the time.
Thanks, Christian. Appreciate it. I'll just share my screen with you folks here so you can see it, and we'll jump right in. All right. Assuming everybody can see my screen here.
We can. You're good, Jake.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure I can get to where I can forward my slides here. We'll be ready to rock. Okay. So thank you all for coming on board today. And one of the things that we wanted to bring up with this topic is that many of the MSPs that we talk to on a regular basis in the current climate are wondering, like, are my customers at risk? Is bringing on new customers slowing down? Whatever kind of financial uncertainty is out there. So ultimately, what we put together is a presentation, and I think you'll like, and that it's actionable, so that you can go back after the presentation today with some actual live documents that you can take away. The first thing we'll do today is tell you a little bit about us. And then we'll get into, like, where do you start, right? So one of the things that's always been important to me as a core value is that I make the decisions that I make in business are fact-based, and that always has to come from good data. So I think the root of where we're going to start today is what data that most MSPs have fairly readily available just from the day-to-day work that you do, whether it's your contract management inside your PSA system, whether it's a CRM where you have all of your customers and the services and the prices and the units that you're charging them. All of that data is there, and we'll show you some of the examples of what we're able to do with the data. But fundamentally, what we're going to focus on is, at a global level, what's your customer landscape look like in terms of numbers of clients, endpoints, people, devices managed, contract value, those kinds of things, get a good sense for it. But also a little bit deeper dive into, of each of those individual services that you do provide, which ones are the most profitable, because that's what we might want to focus on when we're talking about some customer retention things going forward. So that we'll do that right down. We call it the rep level white space analysis, but really what that is, it's a customer by customer breakdown of each service that they have with you, and what the cost of each of those services are, the revenue that they're paying you, and where the opportunities might be to make that customer stickier, either through shoring up the services that they do have, or just ensuring that you're having the right conversations over time with them in the right forums. And then a client ranking system, a way to kind of A, B, C, D, or E, or F, rate your clients, know which ones are the best ones for your business, where you've got the right strategic fit, so that you can make really good decisions about it. And then we'll recap at the end and give you some, and I'll actually provide the documents that we have today so you can take them away and do some of the work. All right, so let me just jump right in. A little bit about who we are. As Steve had mentioned earlier, and thanks for the introduction, Steve, I started out, I've been selling for a really long time, but in the IT industry almost 20 years ago, when I was one of the original investors in Autotask, and then eventually joined the company and spent 16 years there between Autotask and Datto. And then moved on to do some consulting and landed here at Osprey Strategic Research, because one of the things that we fundamentally discovered at Autotask, or when we were at Datto, was having managed service providers, whether it be ad sales talent, to recruit, train, and manage them, get them up to speed, was a challenge. And whether that was an internal account manager that was going to go take care of the base of customers, or whether that was an outbound salesperson that was going to go chase new logos and new pieces of business for the MSP business, the most principal-led IT services companies, didn't have a VP of sales, or didn't have a sales manager in place, and didn't have an onboarding process for salespeople that was, equal to the onboarding that you guys are really efficient at and talented for, which is onboarding new technical talent. So we came up with a business model that would help MSPs recruit, train, and manage salespeople. So the key thing here is we're not an outsourced service for lead generation, right? We actually help you hire the right person for your company based on the goal that you want to achieve. And then we take our best practices and we onboard them, train them, and then manage them on a day-to-day basis. So that's our core business. And today what we're going to share with you are some of the tools that we have that enable us to do that job for our MSPs, but also, if our engagement should end with an MSP, the tools that we have and provide to our partners that they can take and run with even after we're out of the picture. The first thing, and one of the new things that we're doing, is a sales maturity model. This puts us in the position to survey each of our customers, or anybody who just wants to use our app who might not be a customer of ours, and understand through a survey of about 75 questions kind of where you are in terms of your sales journey. Once we rate that, there's an application that'll give you a good indicator of where you sit in the process, either at the bottom of the foundation of the pyramid in terms of sales foundations, or whether you're up near sales leadership. But at each of these levels rates you at 1 to 5 in a variety of different categories. And if you're a 1 in one category and a 3 in another, and you need to get to a 4 to move to the next step, we provide all the documentation, tools, and consulting to help you get each of those scores to the point where you're executing at a higher level in each of the levels of the pyramid. So this is a tool that, whether you're a customer of ours for our consulting services or not, you could use in your business to kind of evaluate your own sales organization, the tools, the people, the process that you have in place already to move forward. So something we'd be happy to share more detail with you guys on if you're interested in it. But what we want to do today is really start to understand, where do we start? So the first thing we want to do, and I'll bring up some spreadsheets in a moment that you guys can take away with you, is fundamentally understand, like, what's the data telling us, right? By whitespace and gap analysis, what we're fundamentally talking about here, what does our client deck look like? We have 75 clients. Each of them are a little bit different. What of our each individual services do they have? Do they have our global MSP all-inclusive service? Are they just buying a few products from us? Are they still break fix? Like, what's the state of the state, so to speak, right? What does it look like? And then ultimately take a step back and go, what are you prepared to execute on? If that were to round out a technology stack within a certain customer, because fundamentally they're missing part of your cybersecurity offering that is now more critical to them than it's ever been. And when they first signed up with you, maybe it wasn't as important for them to get it. And you may want to go in and do that. But we'll do that on a data analysis way that you can actually see the gaps. And then ultimately at a tactical level, like, how are you going to get after it? So we've got some tools in here too that'll show you how exactly to go after it. And then ultimately, in the evaluation of what things to go after, right? Identifying the things that are the highest return on investment, both for you and your end client. the main goal here in terms of stickiness is retention, right? Like, how do we get more of our customers to stay with us? But behind the scenes, we're also looking for ROI. So in other words, if you see gaps in coverage for certain customers, you may want to take a more global approach and say, look, if I give this list to my salesperson, he's going to go sell the highest revenue product that he can sell. What your salesperson or your account manager or whomever may not understand is how much it actually costs you to execute, implement, onboard a customer with that service. So while something looks pretty tasty in terms of monthly recurring revenue, it might not be as great in terms of profitability as a percentage. So, one of the things the CEO at Mark Catini at Autotask used to always tell me, revenue for vanity and profit for sanity. So what we want to do is put data tools in your hands so that you can say, well, this looks like a lot of recurring revenue. It's not great on a profitability side. But also, if we go to the next check, which is checking your client deck with A, B, and C client rankings to understand, all right, while this might not be a high margin product for me, I know it's going to make one of my bigger customers a lot stickier if I can replace their current solution with this one, even if it's not a lot of additional cost for them or a little bit of additional cost. It may provide such a great value for the end client and stickiness for you that you may want to do it. So understanding your client rankings is really important. So we're going to look at 3 very specific documents today. We're going to look at how to stack rank your clients. We're going to look at an individual by customer breakdown of services and MRR. And then we're going to look at a third document that's kind of a higher level strategic document that you can use overall for your company. So just bear with me for a second while I bring up a spreadsheet here, and we'll get going on the next piece. Okay, the first thing I want to bring up, and let's make sure can you guys see that screen? I just want to make sure that screen can be seen. I don't see the outline on my screen here. I just want to make sure you've got it.
Yeah, we're seeing your scorecard, Jake.
Okay, great. Thank you. I didn't see the outline on the screen. Panicked there for a second. Thanks, Steve. So this is a generic spreadsheet. This is for, as you can see, the tab is for our managed clients. Something very simple where you put your clients down the left side of the sheet and across the top, all the potential services that you might sell to a client, right? And then fundamentally understanding who has what, right? I see here someone, client 1, they've got our hardware as a service offering. They've got managed firewall, they've got M365 coverage, but they're not one of our folks that are on our full managed services. Like, what would the potential upgrade be if I were to get this customer to upgrade from what looks like maybe a just hardware as a service client and put them into our fully managed stack, right? And you can begin to start to understand like where you can get revenue. The thing that I always like to look at is like, wow, if I put this customer on my fully managed service, I might make a few less dollars a month. That's where later when we look at how to stack rank your customers, you may want to take a little hit in the pocketbook to make someone stickier, particularly if they're a really big customer, right? That's driving good profitability. So something that we can also evaluate. But again, these are things that are illuminated because you have the data in front of you on a spreadsheet like this one. Is like, okay, fine, that's very empirical in terms of the data. But if you go back and look at, all right, who is this client? How do they stack rank? Are they profitable? Are they big to the point where I'd never want to lose them? Do they treat my employees well? Like whatever the criteria is for your stack ranking of your clients is going to be instructive to which things you're going to go after first on this list. Like it's easy to say like, well, I can see right here that this is going to be pretty lucrative. I can go get an upgrade opportunity of $4,800 and it's going to be a net new in the door of $2,000, right? I want to go after that one. So if I see high net new per customer, intuitively as a salesperson, I want to go chase that, right? But empirically, you want to make sure you have the data that certainly supports it. And this can also be used for, all right, who are my time and materials customers? You can see which ones that are still break fix that you haven't gotten either to your full stack, want to maintain, may have a good relationship with. You can begin to see here, okay, this is what it would cost this customer and my business to ultimately bring them up to my full stack. And ultimately you can look at that. And if you have some other services that you've added, right? A lot of things are happening in the marketplace right now where you may come up with a new product that you want to have in your business that wasn't in your original contract with your customer when you signed it. If you're on a 2 or 3 or any other kind of multi-year deal, you might be in the middle of it and coming up with a new offering that needs to go in. You can begin to track those too. Just create another tab for whatever that offering is. This one here down at the bottom, you can see it happens to be a security offering. And it may not be part of your fully managed solution, but ultimately you want to track more and more of those things. We know that more and more, either you're going to take on the cost to add a new product and not increase the value of the contract, or you're going to go in with a separate offering on top of it. So let's go to the next sheet, which is client ranking systems. And one of the things about this sheet that I like, and we'll provide it to you, is that whatever your criteria is, you can add it, right? We've got a few things in here that we think are important. MRR, what's their credibility in the community? And by community, I mean your community. Like, are they referenceable? Do people know them? Are they a name brand? Are they the biggest accounting firm in your town and they're on the TV 6 times a week and you see their ads all the time? Are they super involved in the community in terms of giving back, fundraisers? Do you see them out there all the time? If you've landed one of those marquee accounts in your territory, then obviously you're going to want to rate them pretty highly. But I think whatever the criteria is, whether it's the number of the monthly recurring revenue that you take from them, whether they're on a block hour contract, whether they're time and materials, just understand the monetary value of the client and assign some kind of point system to how much money they give you. If your ideal customer profile is a 30-person professional services firm, accounting, lawyer, or a manufacturing firm or a public sector place, you may rank these clients in terms of either the number of devices, MRR per month, profitability, just whatever your criteria is, get it in here and then pick a point system that you want to apply to it, and then we'll get an aggregate at the end. Street cred we talked about. The position or the contact within the company that you're talking to, based on what level you're in. If you're in a bigger company and you're at an executive level but not the ownership level, you may want to score that one way. If you're talking directly to every day the owner of the company, you may want to rate that a little bit higher because you got a decision maker that you're going to call, and we can get things done really quickly here because my direct contact, not only does he make decisions about tech, but he also signs the checks. So I think in that regard, you can decide whether that person has a lot of authority, low, medium, or high in terms of authority, and you can give them a stack rank and a score. Geographic location, time is money. If they're far away, where I know most of you folks are doing most of the support and everything remotely now, but if it's I got to have a meeting with them, I got to drive, or it's just out of your geographic reach for whenever you need to get out there for an emergency, you may want to. That may be one of the criteria. More and more now, core value fit is really important, and I've seen a number of our MSP partners rate their customers based on a variety of different things. When it's core value fit, like one of those things might be, does this customer view technology as a means to an end to achieve a business result, or as a necessary evil in the business, and wouldn't have me here if he didn't really need it? And I think in all of those cases, you guys know when you're having, whether it's a monthly operational review, quarterly business review, or you're having a technology roadmap discussion with your end clients, whether or not your customer views the technology as a competitive advantage, whether it's a way to drive the kind of growth that they want, whether it's valuable to them to reduce costs inside the business, and that what you're doing with technology aligns with their business initiatives, and that's part of the discussion. Core value fit can also be like, what's it like when my tech team picks up a phone call or has an interaction with this customer, right? Are these the kind of folks that just scream at us all day long? Or are they a good, pleasant customer that understands, like, people don't always pick up the phone in 5 seconds. People don't get back to your emails all the time within 3 minutes or whatever it happens to be. And again, whatever you determine is the core value fit and the kinds of customers you want to do business with, keep doing business with, or attract to your business, I think taking this core value fit is really important for a couple of reasons. Not only is it good for making sure that the kind of customer that you work with or that you go after fit with your strategic initiatives and your values, but also the wear and tear that it has on your own staff, right? If your customers are pleasant to deal with, your employees are going to have a better work experience. And as you guys know, that is all really super valuable. as you're trying to retain staff and retain clients, right? Are they referenceable? I mean, raving fan score, we put that in there, but ultimately, is this customer referenceable? Would they talk to a potential prospect for me if I needed a reference? Have they contributed to a testimonial? Is there video on my webpage? All those things go in here to kind of scoring your customers, right? And then obviously referrals. So, and you can come in and just take this sheet and tweak it to the way that you want. We have a number of our customers that are using this, and each of them have their own very unique way to select the criteria and to score and weight the criteria. But ultimately, they're going through the exercise of understanding, what's happening. And I have one really good customer that I've known for a long time, and they have a regular meeting inside their company once a month on what's our customer experience been like this month? What are we hearing? What are we seeing? What did we like? What did we not like? And ultimately, using the first spreadsheet on individual company revenue and services, plus this sheet for ranking and stack ranking your clients, it really comes down to, hey, we had a really good sales quarter and we added 4 new clients. Looks like we might have to expand our staff by maybe 1 person on the tech side, or maybe on the client services side of the business. In some cases, what they're doing after evaluating this sheet is say, you know what, we're in a position now where we can maybe disengage with a client, right? Sometimes you have to fire a client, and it's just good to have this data. What's the empirical data that talks about the revenue and profitability? And what's the more intrinsic value that we get from feedback inside our company? If they're not referenceable, they give our staff a hard time, everything's a battle, you may be in the position where you're saying, like, you know what, this is going to make my team super happy. I'm going to be way more efficient. And it may be just time to say goodbye to this client. By the way, I don't advocate anybody getting rid of a client unless there's a really good reason to do it. Revenue's tough, times are hard, all those kinds of things. But ultimately, this just gives you the data here to say, you know what, instead of me hiring a brand new person, I can handle the workload with these other 2 new clients if I take one out of the bottom, off the bottom of the pile. So just a number of different ways that you could use both of the documents that we've shared so far. So far we've talked about the client rankings, and we've talked about getting to know your clients a little bit better in terms of their revenue. The next thing we want to talk about is a little bit more of a global strategic workbook that you can apply to each of your customers and understanding what it is that they do for your business, okay? And so this spreadsheet comes with a bunch of instructions on the weightings. We talk about technical risk in terms of resources. We talk about financial. We talk about people with negative criteria. We talk about the project score. We talk about the rankings. And ultimately, there's a bubble matrix at the end, which is kind of nice. But ultimately, what we're talking about here is a way to globally look at your business, right? And again, if we think about retention and we think about maybe improving or adding services to an existing client, we want to know a couple of things. We want to know whether adding a client or a service is in alignment with company goals and assign that a weighting. We want to make sure that it's a good fit for market positioning. Does it fit with our core capabilities? What's the MRR impact of either adding a new product or service or client? Non-recurring revenue, if you're selling hardware or something that's got a one-time fee like a project, we'll want to see what the impact of that's going to be. What's the time to break even if you invest all this time in this customer? What's the technical risk? What are the resources in terms of financial? What are the resources in terms of people? And let me show you what that looks like. All right. So we'll come in and actually say, oh, for a VoIP offering or Office 365 or an all-in offering or a security stack or a new price increase or whatever that happens to be, list your initiatives here. What are the projects that you could potentially do for clients? What are the initiatives that you have in place? And you'll see their total points here. But what we want to get at here in terms of a global look at your company is, let's suppose your company, is managing 2,500 devices, right, across your entire customer base. What this view and this does at the client level is take everything we had in that first spreadsheet per client and get it into a global spreadsheet and understand, okay, well, how many of our clients do we have on VoIP? Well, it's 1,000 out of 1,000 endpoints out of potential 2,500. And as you can see, as we go down here, you can see which of your clients have what products relative to the total number of devices, which gives you a sense for, okay, all right, is it mandatory? And you'll see here, now it's mandatory in our stack, but we've got a lot of people that don't have it. So we need to make make some amends here, right? Also the cost. If it's inside your customer base and you don't have an account manager yet, or you don't have a client success manager, or a route to having these kinds of discussions with your clients on increasing the number of services or the types of things that they're doing with you, what would the cost of that salesperson be? Because on a global level, as an MSP, you want to be able to know, like, all right, if I'm going to add this resource and I'm going to chase this opportunity, what's my break even? When do I start to make money? What do I have to invest up front to make this thing happen, right? So ultimately, we're looking at what's the increase in MRR per device, right, here in this column. And then what's the salesperson's investment, right? What are they going to do? What's the profit margin, right? And then ultimately, how long to our break even point, right? You can see here with the security stack, it's pretty short. With getting our all-in offering, it's like 3 months. But if I'm going to go do something like VoIP that's low on the profitability side, not a ton of revenue on the front end, somewhat of a commodity product, maybe because there's 14 different VoIP vendors, you may decide, like, you know what, I know this has, 1,500 endpoints I could go chase, and the revenue's not bad incrementally. But ultimately, I want to focus on something else. This one looks good. A small price increase across my entire customer base, where I can see most of them are not on my current pricing, is going to have the biggest impact of everything. And if I take a look at the climate right now in terms of inflation, in terms of what's happening, while nobody wants to spend more money, customers have never been in a better position to understand the need to have a price increase. They've probably had the price increase themselves. They've probably experienced it with a number of other vendors. So again, this number here is really important, because if you combine this with your ABC rankings of your clients, right, and you combine it with the individual data you have on each individual customer, now you can really start to make a decision. If you have someone who's rated as a C or a D level customer, right, not particularly pleasant with your staff, doesn't have the full stack, you may say, like, we're sending out a letter 90 days ahead of time that they're either going to increase or we're going to disengage, whatever it is, but you can say for your A and B level customers, you're like, you know what, really, really valuable. Let's make sure we're spending the time with those clients in our monthly review meetings, in our QBRs, in our technical roadmap meetings, and make sure they understand the value of what I'm about to ask them to do. And you may warn them 6 or 9 months ahead of time, right, that there might be a price increase. That discussion for either your account manager, or if it's a big enough client, you as a business owner, having this discussion with your clients, it may sound like, hey, look, 2023 is looking like it's like you guys were experiencing a ton more of increase in costs, both from salaries and everything else. I'm not saying it's certain yet, but we're looking at how do we kind of keep delivering the same level of service or better for you, and what that looks like for us in terms of cost. It could potentially, end up in a 3, 4, 5, maybe even a 6% price increase year to date. I'm not telling you that we're going to do it. I'm telling you that we're evaluating it. So if you need to plan for it, right, it can be in your budget. So if you take the data points that we're seeing here from the 3 different documents, you can make global judgments, right, and just say, we're going after everybody in this segment for this product at this price. Let's go see if we can get it. Or, you know what, I've got some customers here that are super important to me that don't have a piece of my technology stack that I know that they need. It'll make them stickier with me, and it'll be benefit to them. You guys can make the value judgments, like, okay, what's the cost for me to deliver it? Do I need to raise my prices in order to make it happen? Or is this a value add I'm gonna provide to this customer to make sure that they stay with me, right? I'm hunkering down. I want to make sure I've got, so instead of a price increase, they may get that service, and it may be you extend their contract 12 months, right? So where they're getting value, they may not have to cough up extra money, but you may make the judgment that, as a favor to me, if we could extend your agreement, we can make sure it runs through 2024. That's only, it seems like a long time, but at the end of the day, it's only 27 months from now. That would really help my business. And if you've got a great relationship with the customer and you're not going to increase their fees, and you're just looking to nail down retention over a longer period of time with a little bit of extra value, here at least you have the data to fully understand, like, what's happening here, right? So just some of the other data that's in here is, like, you can see how everything stacks up and how they score and what their weightings are and which things you want to go after. Obviously, here in our little example, and I'm not going to vouch for the data because this is, exemplary more than anything else. That looks like a good one to go after, right? And then you can also rank them with just their scores depending on This is just another way to visualize the same data. And then ultimately, if you're really a graphical person, we'll even throw it into a bubble matrix for you. But again, I think the thing that you're going to want to spend most time on is making sure for you and your company that you get the weightings right and which things are important to you most important to you. You may say, you know what, MRR impact is the most important thing for us. I want to bump this a little bit. We don't do any non-recurring revenue that's substantial, so let's just get it out. Doesn't weight at all, and you could still use this tool. Okay. Let me do this. Let me just go back to the PowerPoint, bring that back up, and go to the next slide and kind of summarize for you guys a bit before we wrap here and take some questions. So a couple of things that we want to hope we've put some tools in your hands that you can take advantage of today to increase customer retention and stickiness, but also maybe even create some revenue opportunities for your company. Prioritize, right? How do I do it? What are the things that are the most cost effective? What do I have the right resources for? Which financially makes the most impact? What's the biggest benefit for my clients based on individual customer globally inside my business and in terms of their client score? And focus on strategic fit, right? Economic impact and feasibility. Is this product or service or customer a great fit for my company? Does it have a big economic impact on my company? And is it feasible for me to do it? You may be in a resource crunch, right? Something that looks like it's a strategic fit. It's going to have high economic impact. You may be looking like, hey, I'm trying to hire that person to do that role. So it might not be feasible right now. So three-legged stool here to determine whether or not you chase or not, right? And strengthen your client base to reduce churn and increase MRR is the two goals we want to take out of just understanding our customer data a little bit better and what it looks like when you want to put it into action for either retention or revenue growth. And that's the summary. Those are the sheets, and we hope you'll take advantage of those tools. I just wanted to come up here. This is my last slide, just with our contact information. But I think, John, you wanted to take the screen back at this point and maybe take on some questions.
Thanks, Jake. Great job. As always, I really appreciate it. Christian, you as well. I invite you all to post any questions you have in the Q&A window. I've got a few that were already there, queued up and ready to go. Jake, I love all the data that you guys pull together.
Yeah.
And I frequently find myself telling MSP owners that are not necessarily experienced with sales that the first part of the process that they have to think about is how to strategically appear random. And I don't know if that resonates with you in any way, but
it does. I think it does. Go ahead. Yeah. Well, I think what you're getting at is what's the context I'm having this discussion with my client in, so it doesn't look like I'm just nickel and diming them for some more stuff.
Correct. That's a
fair?
big. That is very fair. A big part of it. You know, it usually comes up when people throw out that term that I wish was never coined, QBR, because they get it caught in their head. I've got to meet every client every quarter.
Yeah.
Got to have something to talk about. And that's really where I come back on this and go, use the data to strategically have a random check-in call.
It's exactly right. Yeah.
Don't always make it about the QBR, itself. And I know when I first hired account managers and I stopped doing it myself, the big change was that I would tell them sometimes a QBR is just you looking over the account and shooting the client an email saying, hey, just wanted to check in, just looking over all the stats. Looks like we're doing a great job for you, but wanted to see how things are with you.
That's a fair point.
And not go have a meeting, not go sit down all the time.
Yeah.
Today, I think we need to use video more and not go in person as much. People are used to it, and it's technology we sell. So that's, part of it. But as you were going through all the data, I just kept going, boy, if you're really using these score sheets, and especially the whitespace piece that you were using, I loved to say, hey, what's missing with these clients? What are they not using yet? And what's our plan of action, right? Maybe we know that their budget cycle dictates that now is not the time to even talk to them.
Nope.
Right? Or maybe we know that their business is hurting and we shouldn't talk to them. That doesn't mean we shouldn't plant the seed, but we need to do it subtly, right? And plan for the future on when we're going to push it harder. And I think that's what those score sheets allow you to do.
Yeah, I think that there are a couple of things relative to your point. All clients aren't equal, right? I mean, if you have 80 clients, you couldn't possibly do 80 in-person quarterly business reviews. That's all you'd be doing your whole life, right?
Right.
So I think that the stacking system comes up and says, this person gets, a meeting once a year, and it might be virtual, but to your point around, it sounds like it's a sales call, but it's really a business discussion, right? I mean, and you have to know your customer. Like you said, like if I know there's a customer or an industry that's struggling, it's a different conversation that I'm having with him versus someone who I know is killing it, right? And always in the context of your discussion, I think is always really important. Like, okay, what's my regular communication cadence with this customer? If he responds to my phone calls, my emails, I'm happy to continue to do that. If he's the kind of customer that, he requires, 30 minutes a month where we get on a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting and just kind of review, or he's the kind of customer that wants to go to lunch once a month, I think everybody knows who those folks are, right? And I think that to your point about making it appear random, even though you've researched the heck out of it, you know exactly the customer, what conversation you want to have with what customer and what the impact is going to be of that conversation potentially. If you can have that when I've got my monthly lunch with this customer, or I've got my, once a month where I get an email that I know he's going to look at because I've seen him review it every month. I just think you just do it in the context of your existing, your existing communication pattern is the best way to have that conversation, because then it doesn't sound like a sales call. It just sounds like an extension of what you're already doing.
I always remind myself that I've never, ever in my life heard anybody say, man, do I love to be sold to, right? You hear people say they like to buy. You hear people say they like the process of haggling, which they think they do better than the salesperson, but generally don't. But you never hear anyone say, I love being sold to. So if we can figure out how to not make them feel like we're selling to them, we win, right? And we win every time. Years ago, and I tell this story a lot of peer sessions and peer group, but years ago, I had the executive director of a poorly funded nonprofit answer a survey from a marketer that was trying to help build a brand for us. And he said, the one thing is, I really don't think Steve's a very good salesperson. And they shared it with me. And I said, that's fantastic news.
Yes, that's
and
great.
I was like, what do you mean? I said, well, they have no money. They buy absolutely everything I ever want them to buy, and they don't feel like I'm selling. That, to me, is a win. I want every client to feel that way. It would be wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it comes back to context, right? I mean, if you, you guys know, like if you're on a multi-year contract with someone and, or you've had a long relationship with someone and they trust you, and you're coming to them with something that says, look, you know what, 12 months ago when we put this contract in place, this thing wasn't even a thing, but I want you to make you aware of it. Here's what we're seeing in the marketplace. I mean, who doesn't take that information as nothing more than a benefit? If this is something you feel like at this point in time, it's something I do. I feel like this is something based on what I know about what your goals are, and what your current stack looks like, and what the risk looks like in the industry right now. I would say this is something that you should do. Like that's a totally different conversation than calling somebody up out of the blue and saying like, do you want to buy this thing today? Yep. Right? I mean,
exactly.
So
exactly. Hey, Christian, you with us?
Yes, sir.
So I had someone post a question that I hear frequently, more geared towards the use of that generic doesn't connect to PSA product that we will leave nameless, but we all use or have used over the years, at least at one time or another. But I had someone post, don't clients complain about having to do their own scheduling?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of jokingly touched on there's like that one client, maybe a legacy client, maybe one you inherited, that no matter what you put in front of them to make your relationship that much more straightforward and easier, may decline. If you balance it or kind of filter it through the alternative, I can't speak for all end users, but the feedback that we consistently get is that clients welcome the new process. Even if you stick a times a scheduling link in front of them and availability might not be until 10 a.m. the next day, it just resonates and it lands and settles a little bit different than them getting voicemail or, hey, we're not available by way of an email response. Yeah, I mean, you are giving dominion to the client, but I just kind of circle back to this. This is how the world schedules now. There's going to be exceptions to that. We don't think that that's holistic across the board just yet, but we see it, scheduling kind of going in that direction. I've yet to have a partner come back to me and say that their clients felt like the burden was transferred from the MSP to them by introducing this new product. That being said, I've seen and heard it all since I've landed in this space. So I wouldn't be surprised, if it's a consideration, but I do think it's a minimal consideration. I think most people see the upside to it. They welcome it. And I think that's spoken to, our relative success in a short period.
Well, it really makes that service coordinator, or to use the archaic term, dispatcher role, much easier to manage, right? They're not playing telephone tag. They're just managing the calendar and expectations, and maybe changing schedule, but not having to do the initial scheduling, as you go through it all.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on that. We love human capital. So, in no way, shape, or form do we replace the dispatcher or the service coordinator. The biggest deliverable in that context for that role is currently, when they need to schedule, they're going through X number of calendars for X number of resources to find the fix, to append to that appointment and that connection that needs to go down with the end user. We're automating all of that. So, and they're still central to the process. They're still QBing or quarterbacking, for a lack of a better reference, but as opposed to juggling X number of calendars, did I check personal? Did I check the PSA calendar? They're just going to hit a button that says ask client to schedule, and we're going to do that real-time lookup against those resources. Yep.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I hope everyone received some information that was actionable and helpful for them today. I certainly did. I made some notes myself. For those not participating in an MSP-Ignite peer group, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to talk to you about that, and our contact info is on the screen as well. Jake, Christian, thank you so much for your time and expertise. Really appreciate it. Hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks, Steve. See you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks.
Thank you.